Hello and welcome to the Federal Podcast. I am Aprameya C. India's wait to win an ICC trophy continues as the Rohit Sharma-led team lost the World Test Championship final to Australia by 209 runs at the Oval in London. India have not won an ICC title since 2013. To review the WTC final, we are joined by senior cricket writer R. Kaushik. Thanks, Kaushik, for talking to the Federal again.
Thanks, Apu. I wish it was in happier circumstances, though.
Right. Kaushik, another WTC final and another loss in 2021. India lost to New Zealand and now to Australia. What do you think went wrong this time?
Well, everything that could go wrong went wrong, didn't it, Apu, apart from the toss. It was an important toss to win. Rohit Sharma had a difficult choice to make, because one of the things we spoke about in the lead up to this test match is how you pick a side for the 5 days of a test match, not for day 1, not for day 4, not for the first innings, or not for the second innings alone. You pick sides that will last a distance that you think is best suited under the conditions. And once you decided to go in with 4 fast bowlers and you won the toss, then you had no option but to bowl first. You can say that, you can debate the call. Was it the right call to field first, or should India have just bitten the bullet and batted first? The success of these calls depends on what happens actually. If India had bowled Australia out for 230, let's say, then it should have been a masterstroke to bowl first.
Right.
But as it turned out, while it was overcast for the first couple of hours, and to be fair, in those first couple of hours, Siraj and Shami did bowl really well. They were unfortunate that they didn't get more success. Probably they were just a little bit short, so they didn't get the nicks and they kept missing the outside edge. And at 76 for 3 after lunch, when Labuschagne was out, India was very much in with the chance, but after that everything just unraveled so quickly, and India was both powerless to prevent the flow of runs and the speed at which those runs came.
Right. Kaushik, you spoke about the toss. Was Ashwin's exclusion justified, or he should have played?
Again, one of those things where the end result is the one that offers any scope for justification, doesn't it, Apu? You look at, again, this is one thing we discussed before the final, where do you play your best bowling attack or do you play the attack that you think is best suited for the conditions? In Southampton 2 years back, in the final against New Zealand that you were referring to, India played what they thought was the best bowling attack, which included Ashwin and Jadeja. And in many ways, that was a questionable call because the first day was washed out, and when the toss happened on day 2, it was moist and damp and overcast, much more than it was at the Oval this time. And the forecast for the match was not so great. So maybe there was a case for India to play 4 seamers at that stage, but they went with what they thought was the best combination that would help them get 20 wickets. That did not work out. In this instance, they played the conditions as they saw it on day 1, rather than what they thought would unfold as the match went on. And with the benefit of hindsight, yes, we can say that Ashwin should have played, perhaps at the expense of Umesh Yadav, perhaps at the expense of Shardul Thakur. We don't know which way, what the toss-up was there between the 3 of them, which 2 of them would play. Yes, the benefit of hindsight would indicate that Ashwin should have played in the 11, but when he didn't, and it's not as if India had a shabby bowling lineup. It was a very good attack. It's got a lot of wickets, a lot of success in different parts of the world. They were just not good enough during this duration of this test match. And
one more thing was the ploy against Travis Head, who scored 163, maybe till he reached 90 plus. India didn't use the short ball ploy, and suddenly there's barrage of short pitch bowling. Do you think they didn't prepare well for Head?
Well, I don't know if they didn't prepare well, but definitely they didn't execute the plans if they had preparatory work in place for this particular aspect that you're talking about. The 2 things to note, Apu. One, you spoke about the line of attack and the lengths that they did not bowl to Head at the start of his innings. The other thing is that it's worth remembering that when Head came into bat, it was in the first over after lunch on the first day of the final, with Australia on 76 for 3 after having been put in. So there was a case for India to apply the pressure. Instead, the field was spread out. There was easy single on offer to Head with the sweeper cover in place, which meant that it was a defensive tactic for some strange reason, and that really surprised me because Rohit Sharma is not really a defensive captain, as we've known over the years, both with Mumbai Indians and for the national side. And so to allow him to get away to a sighter Head is a very strong and powerful player. He's an attacking player. We've seen that, and it's reflected in this innings as well. But why do you want to make things easy for him? Why don't you crowd him? Why don't you put pressure on him? And why don't you try to make him do something silly? So that's one questionable choice. The other one, of course, is the short ball mode of attack that India did not employ. It's very surprising because you have a very qualified and celebrated backroom staff with Rahul Dravid as the head coach. You have an analyst, and you have the bowling coaches and the fielding coaches and the batting coaches, and you have a whole army of people out to support the players. And I'm sure that amongst them, if you and I, for instance, have figured out that Travis Head has got a problem with the short ball, I'm sure in their infinite wisdom they would have figured that out as well. So, which begs the question, then why did he not employ that line of attack? Why did he not use that length to harry Travis Head, to force him to make mistakes, to hustle him? Yeah, it was a trick miss, definitely a trick miss, and well, he had 163 reasons to punish India for that, didn't he?
And one more centurion, Steve Smith always scores against India, and he did it again, 121.
He's a class act, Apu. I mean, we know that for a long, long time. Again, this is something that we discussed in the pre-test show where we spoke about how his metamorphosis from a leg spinner to this champion test batsman, that he is 31 test hundreds now. He's got hundreds everywhere in the world, and he's got hundreds in matches that matter. You can question and ask, how does a test match not matter, that every test match matters? And yes, of course it does, but there are some games which are more special and which are more meaning and have a greater impact than other games, and this was one such game. Smith came in under pressure of circumstances, pressure of the conditions, but the way he held his end up, he encouraged Head to play his natural game. He was this rock, and Australia knew that Smith was around, so they could build their innings around him. And that's the kind of role he would have envisaged one of the Indian top order 3, 4, 5 to play as they took the Indian innings together. Did not happen. Happened with Smith. He carried Australia's batting around him, and once he helped them reach 469, in my head there was only one winner.
And how do you assess India's batting and their shot selection, especially in the second innings, the way they folded 7 wickets in one session on the final day when they were chasing 444, and there was still hope that 280 runs more to score, and Kohli and Rahane were at the crease.
Yeah, I mean, the second innings collapse, if you like, is the one that is freshest in our memory because it happened just yesterday. But we go back in time and you go to the first innings when India was chasing 469 that Australia put up on the board, and you needed a solid batting performance at that stage, and you didn't get a solid batting performance.
Right.
There were too many loose shots, too many soft dismissals, and I memean, if India reached 296 and if they kept the deficit down to 173, that was largely because of Jadeja, Rahane and Shardul Thakur. The top order gave you nothing, practically nothing to play with, and that's simply not on. You were batting in the best batting conditions of the match. The pitch had eased out, whatever help was there had gone, the sun was beating down. It's exactly the kind of conditions that Indian batsmen thrive in, but to see hardly any contribution from the top 4 of Gill, Rohit, Pujara and Kohli, it was very disappointing. It's not the kind of performance that you would expect from people who have scored this many runs and have got these inflated averages that you would expect them to stand up, take a leaf out of the Steve Smith book. Unfortunately, did not happen. And I think that is where the game is lost also. When 469 was a big target, maybe if you had got to 420, 430, 440, maybe the second innings game, you never know what will happen. But once in India were 4 down for nothing, and then they had to rely on Jadeja and Rahane and Shardul Thakur to get them past the follow-on mark. Yeah, then India had the work cut out. As for the second innings, well, again, like you said, questionable shot selection. What was Cheteshwar Pujara doing with the ramp shot in a test match? And this Cheteshwar Pujara, of all people, the man who loves leading the ball, who loves batting long, this is an ideal situation for him to just bed down and hold his end up and allow the others to bat around him, see how the game goes, and maybe if you're in with a shout, then go for the target. But Pujara chose to go the other tack, this whole thing of intent and having to be positive and to try and get on top of the bowling. All that is fine if it comes naturally to you, but if it doesn't come naturally and if it's a forced attempt to be aggressive and positive, then the results often are disastrous, as we found out yesterday. As far as Virat Kohli is concerned, well, terrible shot in the second innings. It's something that we have seen far too often now. It is a worrying trend. he gets into this mode where he leaves, and suddenly the sucker ball outside the off stump, like yesterday from Boland, was innocuous. I mean, it was just a wide-ish delivery which did nothing. It just went straight, and Kohli just threw his bat at it. No feet, just hands. Like I said, it's happened quite often in the recent past, and it is a matter of concern when your premier batsman, and in this lineup, I suppose Kohli is still the premier batsman, and when he doesn't perform, and there is a pattern to his dismissal, then something is not right.
And you just mentioned about Scott Boland. He was just brilliant, isn't it? Kaushik, he replaced Josh Hazelwood, who was injured, and he delivered the goods for Australia in the big match.
Yes, I mean, all through this World Test Championship cycle, Boland's not always been the first choice for Australia. Right. He's played 8 Test matches in this cycle. He's got 31 wickets. His average is fantastic. His economy is in the early 2.2s. So he's just a terrific addition. He's not one of those guys that you will look at him first and say, yeah, he's going to blast the opposition batting out. You look at a Mitchell Starc and you think, wow, look at the swing and look at the Yorker and look at the pace, and you feel that, yeah, this is a guy who's capable of blowing the opposition away. But when you look at Boland, you would not get that impression. But he does the right things. He puts the ball in the right areas, as they say, hits the right length depending on where he's playing, and he doesn't give you anything. He's always at you. He's always at the stumps, and no discredit to him. I mean, let's not take anything away from him. He moves the ball just a bit to catch the edge. There is no point in getting it to swing 4 degrees, 5 degrees, or seem that much and make it look good but not have the results. Boland is a class act in that he knows exactly what to do to get wickets, and he's been a great addition for Australia. In a way, Josh Hazelwood's injury sort of worked out well for Australia because Boland was ready. Boland's experienced now, and he stepped up and did a fantastic job for Pat Cummins.
And there was this controversial moment which triggered social media debate on Cameron Green's low catch, one-handed catch at Gully, and that dismissed Shubman Gill. What is your take on that catch?
Well, my first instinct when I saw it on real time was that it was not out. But it's one of those things. We have talked about it ad nauseum in various platforms. You and I have discussed this in the past as well. That when you see a catch like this, then invariably you go with your instinct. And if you think it is not out, like I thought when I first saw it, then no amount of replays will convince you otherwise. You will stick to your guns and you will feel that it is not out. Whereas if somebody else has seen it and his first reaction was that, yeah, that's out, then any number of replays will not convince him that it is otherwise. So that is the limitation of two-dimensional technology in which we watch these pictures on television. And so it did generate a lot of heat, and it's still generating a lot of heat and debate, not helped by Shubman Gill's social media post, which possibly could get him into trouble with the authorities. And the fact of the matter is that once it was referred to the third umpire, and the one thing we must remember is a change, and I think it's a welcome change from what used to exist in the past, is that there is no more soft signal from the on-field umpires since the beginning of June, or since the beginning of this month. So the third umpire is free to make his own decision. When soft signal was in effect, then essentially the third umpire had to try his very best to ensure that the on-field umpire's decision is justified, which means that if there was a doubt, he would tend to favor the on-field umpire. And now that there is no soft signal, the third umpire is free to make his own decision, independent of what the people in the middle might think. And in his infinite wisdom, Richard Kettleborough believed that it was a fair catch. He believed Green was in control of the ball when he held the catch. He believed that his fingers were underneath the ball, and the fingers separated the ball from the grass. We can debate for till the cows come home, and we'll never find the consensus on whether it was out or whether it was not out. It was a huge moment in the game. India had got off to a decent start, 41, I think, at the time when Gill was out. And Gill was looking in good touch like he did in the first innings as well before he got out. So, it was a big moment in the game. But games do not turn on one test matches do not turn on one decision. I mean, you look at the slices of fortune that India had in the first innings when Rahane and Shardul Thakur were batting, no balls, no balls. It's just one of those things, isn't it? So I don't think that affected the outcome of the game in the real sense of the word. But it is cricket can do without one of those things. Nowadays, it's very people play a lot with each other, and so there is a sense of trust and confidence. But in the heat of the moment, you never know what's right and what's wrong. We can't blame Cameron Green for the catch because he did what he thought was right, and then he appealed, and it was eventually the third umpire who adjudicated Gill out. So to call Cameron Green a cheat is, I think, the low blow. I don't think Green is to be blamed in his shape or form, and nor is it Kettleborough, because again, I've heard in some quarters that the benefit of doubt should have gone to the batsman. But the fact of the matter is that you might have had a doubt and I might have had a doubt, but Kettleborough was not in any doubt at all. So where does the question of the benefit of the doubt come when he has no doubt?
Right. Kaushik, looking at India's batting, lone bright spot we can say was Ajinkya Rahane. What a comeback it's been, 89 and 46 in the match.
Yes, I mean, again, you go back 2 months in time at the start of the IPL and you would never have thought that Rahane will be playing a test match again, would you? That is how the situation was. But then, again, like we discussed, Shreyas Iyer not there, Rishabh Pant not there. Therefore, India needed a proper batsman, an experienced batsman, if you like, to play a match of this magnitude. And Rahane's early season form for Chennai Super Kings in the IPL helped. The fact that he batted beautifully in those, not just the volume of runs that he made for CSK or for Mumbai in the Ranji Trophy season before that, it's just the manner in which he made those runs. He looked confident, he looked authoritative, he was moving beautifully, his feet were moving. And when he came to England, Rahane has played some fabulous knocks in England as well, including the 100 at Lord's in 2014. And he's at his best when he expresses himself, and that is what he did in both innings of this test match. He batted quite beautifully. Some of his driving was out of the world. He will be kicking himself that he didn't go on and convert 89 into 100, or even in the second innings, he played a poor shot at 46 and got out. But he has definitely given himself every chance to remain in the mix, even when Shreyas Iyer recovers from his injury and comes back. It's a sort of a happy headache in a way to have for Rahul Dravid and the selectors. What do they do with Rahane when Shreyas Iyer comes back? But you would rather have more people to pick from than look at who the next option is. From that point of view, it's good for the Indian team. It's good for Rahane himself. He will be the first to admit that he could have done with a little more help from his specialist batsmen, the guys who've been playing for the last year and a half, which Rahane missed. But that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
One last question, Kaushik. 10 years is a long time without an ICC title. What do you think Team India needs to do? And for the next cycle, 2023-25 World Test Championship, do you think some of the experienced players like Rohit, Kohli, Pujara, will they be there to take India to another final and maybe to glory there? Or later this year, we have one more World Cup, 50-over World Cup at home. So what are your thoughts on that India winning an ICC title?
Yeah, it is a long wait, especially for a country that is as mad about cricket as India is, and for a team which has got such a proud record in bilateral series. If you look at India's record in all formats in bilateral tournaments, it's phenomenal.
Right.
Which is the reason why they are playing the World Test Championship final, which is the reason why they are ranked so highly in the other two formats, because they've been consistent throughout long periods of time in country versus country competition. But when it comes to tournaments, when it comes to you look at the difference between the World Test Championship, for instance, and the T20 World Cup or the 50-over World Cup, is that the T20 World Cup lasts maybe 3.5 weeks. The 50-over World Cup lasts about 2 months, and they're all in a short period of time, condensed tournaments. Whereas the World Test Championship is like a marathon. It's drawn out over 2 years, and irrespective of what the format has been, that India have not been able to crack that knockout riddle, if you like. I mean, they've been in 4 finals since they won the last ICC trophy, which was the Champions Trophy in 2013. They lost all 4 finals, one of them in the T20 World Cup, one of them in the Champions Trophy, and now 2 in the World Test Championship final. Well, they might be loath to admit it, but maybe there is a mental block. Maybe they're afraid of, that, like, again, I think I remember using this line last week, Kapu, when we spoke about how failure can become a habit.
Right.
And a lot of these guys have been involved in those finals or in those matches and defeats and knockout games. So maybe they're carrying some baggages, some mental scars from those results. They will say no, but well, on the evidence of what we have seen so far, it's hard to not feel that there are mental scars that they are carrying. As for the next cycle, yeah, it's another 2 years of hard cricket, and they've got 3 challenging away series, one in the West Indies next month, then to South Africa later in the year, and then a 5-test series in Australia in the next Australian summer, which is December, January 24-25. So those are 3 difficult away tours. There's a 5-test series at home against England, which will be a big test of India's home record. They have not lost a series at home for more than a decade now, and England will challenge that with their baseball technique and their desire to take the bowling to the opposition. So it will be a widely followed and much anticipated series. Whether the same individuals that you mentioned, the Rohit Sharmas and the Virat Kohlis and the Pujaras, will be around for the duration of the next 2 years of this cycle. We'll have to wait and watch. The same applies to somebody like Mohammad Shami, for instance, who's now into his 10th year in international cricket. Where does Jasprit Bumrah fit in? Where are the spinners? How long does Ashwin play? These are all questions that we will find answers to as we move along the cycle, maybe this time next year or maybe a little later towards the end of next year before we embark on the trip to Australia. We'll have a clearer picture of how things stand. But the immediate priority, of course, will not be the next World Test Championship. Yes, India's traveling to West Indies next month for 2 Test matches. But already, I suspect the planning will start to veer towards the 50-over World Cup. It's been 12 years since India last won the 50-over World Cup, which was in India in 2011 under Mahendra Singh Dhoni. So Rohit Sharma has a chance to emulate his former captain. Now that the World Cup is back in India again, Rahul Dravid has a chance to emulate Gary Kirsten. Lots to look forward to. The World Cup it's a tournament where so many things have to go right for you to win, and only one thing has to go wrong. And the pressures of playing at home, wherever you go, this whole thing of people saying you must win it. Again, that adds to the whole mental baggage that teams are already saddled with. So, yeah, it's a difficult and challenging few months ahead of the Indian team, but it's also an exciting few months ahead of the Indian team. So, where there is pressure, there's always opportunity, and you would think that given the wisdom that nestled in the Indian dressing room, that they will look at the opportunity of making or rewriting history in front of their own fans come November 19th.
Right. Thanks, Kaushik. Let's hope we get some good news when they play the 50-over World Cup.
I hope so, Apu. It's been a long time, and I think the fans, more than anyone else, the fans deserve better from their heroes. They have been through the team in difficult times and in happy times, and they've stood by them like a rock. I'm not suggesting that the players are not trying. Of course, they're trying their hardest, but sometimes trying your hardest is not enough. You need to get past the finishing line, and I hope, for the fans' sake as much as anyone else's sake, that Rohit Sharma holds the trophy aloft come November.
Thank you.